Hello friends, and happy day 14 of Vlogmas. I cannot believe we're only 9 days away from Christmas. Are you ready yet? Because I'm not. So the story today is that we have freezing rain, basically kind of like an ice storm here in the Midwest. The roads are coated in ice. Everything's coated in ice. We're not going anywhere today. And so I thought it would be fun to share a day of meals with you. And I'm just using what I have in my house to cook everything today. Now, I did make breakfast earlier this morning, so we're gonna rewind a little bit and I'm gonna share that with you. So for breakfast, I had to kind of take an inventory of my pantry and fridge and freezer and see what I had. So I decided to make some cheese grits along with kind of like an egg scramble using some veggies I found in my crisper drawer along with some ham. So I'm just cutting up some red pepper and some red onion that I found in the refrigerator. And then I went ahead and sauteed those in a pan with a little bit of butter and olive oil. And then if you guys watched my weekend prep video before I traveled for work this past week, I actually took some of the leftover ham from Thanksgiving, chopped it up and put it in the freezer to use later. So this was perfect for that. And then I cracked some eggs. I added some cheese to the grits. So this was actually using the cheese grits recipe on the back of the container. It called for Velveeta cheese and it turned out super good, actually. Once the meat and the veggies were done sauteing, I just added some eggs to the pan, scrambled those up, added a tiny bit of shredded cheese to the top, and then I tasted the grits to make sure that those were okay, adjusted the seasonings, and then this was the plate I made for Adam. Just some cheese grits, a piece of wheat toast, and some of that egg, ham, and cheese scramble. He thought it was really good. I just had a little bit of cheese grits, and then I made a coffee in my Nespresso with some gingerbread pods and some steamed milk. All right, so I just got back from a work trip a couple nights ago. I wouldn't say the fridge is like empty. Obviously, I still have some things left in here, but maybe we're gonna have to get a little bit creative. So I thought the first thing that I would make besides breakfast for lunch is some broccoli cheddar soup. So I do have some sharp cheddar cheese in here. Looks like I have feta. I have some shredded kind of like Mexican style cheddar cheese, but I think I'll use a combination of sharp cheddar and this Colby Jack that I have. And then over here, I've got some carrot sticks. These I'm just going to julienne to combine with some garlic, and I salvaged the last onion that I had in my pantry. So we're gonna mince that up. And then I washed this broccoli. It's about 4 cups of broccoli I washed and trimmed before I left on my work trip, and it's still good. I've got my trusty garbage bowl here. Fun fact about this bowl, actually, my grandma gave this to me recently. This bowl is actually from 1919, so it's over 100 years old. I actually am trying to figure out, it's made out of some type of metal. I've never really seen one like it. I'm not sure that it's safe to serve food out of because it probably has lead in it. I don't know. I don't know. My grandma was just using it for decoration in her house, and she's like, you can take that home with you. And then she also gave me this picture, which I think this is a picture of her mother and her aunt. So that would be my great grandmother. Anyway, she was telling me that her mom, which would be my great grandmother, got this bowl as a wedding gift back in 1919. So anyway, I thought that was kind of fun. And then I've got my oven preheating. I always keep some bread from wild grain in my freezer, and it comes in super handy on times like this when I haven't gone to the grocery store and I don't really have any fresh bread available. So this is just gonna bake in the oven for, let's see, 400 degrees for about 20 minutes, and then we'll have that with the broccoli cheese soup. I'm gonna put the bread in the oven, and you don't need to put it on a tray or sheet or anything. Just put it right on the rack and bake it like that. I'm gonna add a couple tablespoons of butter to this Dutch oven, and I'll link the recipe that I'm basing this off of down below. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of olive oil. So this is just to keep the butter from burning. We'll add our chopped onions and carrots. These veggies have been sauteing for about 5 minutes, so I'm gonna add a 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour, and then we'll get our liquids ready. 2 cups of water, and I'm using water instead of chicken broth because I'm gonna add some Knorr chicken bouillon. I always just keep that on hand, and it's 1 teaspoon per cup of water. I'm gonna add a little bit less because I don't want it to be super salty. I could always add more. I'm gonna add some half and half. I took my broccoli and I cut it down into smaller florets just so it would all cook evenly. So we're gonna add that to the soup. All right, and then we're gonna simmer this for about 10 or 15 minutes until the broccoli is tender. So I've got a mixture of cheeses because I didn't have enough cheddar. So I'm gonna use some Velveeta, tiny little bit of Parmesan, and then some Colby Jack and cheddar. I'm just gonna melt that in. I've got the heat turned all the way down, so we're just gonna stir that cheese in until it melts. I'm gonna double check the recipe, but I think that's it except for seasoning. So I'm gonna add like a pinch of cayenne just to give it a tiny little bit of spice, not much, just a tiny little bit. And then salt if it needs it, pepper, maybe a tiny little bit of garlic powder or onion powder. All right, so that is perfect. I added some cayenne pepper, a little bit of salt, pepper, and I also added just a tiny little squirt of Dijon mustard, which is common when you make like cheese sauces and cheese soups and stuff like that. It kind of helps bring out the flavor a little bit. So this is done, and then my bread is done as well. You do need to let this kind of sit on the counter to finish baking for about 15 minutes after it comes out of the oven, but you hear it's nice and crusty. It turned out so good. Recommend the bread to dip in the soup. Perfect. Connor wants hot chocolate, and we don't have any packets of hot chocolate, so I'm gonna try to make some from this recipe I found on Epicurious. I've got 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder, 2 tablespoons of milk, and you're supposed to whisk that together with a little bit of milk until smooth, and then add the rest of the milk and heat it up. Oh, and also add some vanilla as well. I snuck a taste. It's pretty legit. I did add a tiny little splash of cream to it and a tiny little bit more sugar just because I thought it needed it, but yum. So for dinner, I thought it would be perfect to make a recipe out of my cookbook. This is the Essential Pantry cookbook that I wrote a few years back. I'll link it in the description box below, but it has a lot of great, obviously, pantry recipes in it that you can make with stuff that you already have in your house. So we're gonna make the spicy beef and potato tacos that are on page 43. What? Stomp, stomp, stomp. For the Spanish rice, I'm going to use this recipe I found on food.com. I printed it off a super long time ago, so if I can still find it, I'll link it down below. But basically what you want to do is take 2 cups of rice and saute that in a skillet with some neutral oil. So I used vegetable oil, and you're basically just trying to toast the rice, and the addition of the oil is also going to help those grains kind of stay separate once the rice is finished. I added some flavorings I had, so garlic, onion, pepper. I would have added some cilantro stems if I would have had them on hand, but I didn't. And once that rice is nice and golden brown, you want to stir it frequently and watch it to make sure that it doesn't burn. You want to add your chicken broth. So I actually typically use a little bit of tomato sauce in my Spanish rice, but I didn't have any. So I just mixed a few tablespoons of tomato paste with some water, and I added that. And in lieu of chicken broth, I'm actually using some of that Knorr chicken bouillon. So again, just using things that I have on hand. It kind of forces you to get creative, use up what you have without going to the store, which is exactly what I was trying to do. So then I put a lid on that and cooked the rice for about 25 minutes. Next, I'm going to peel my potatoes and get those chopped up. If you've never tried potatoes in taco filling before, it's actually very good. And it's a way that you can kind of stretch your meat mixture. It works with a variety of different types of meat, but it's a great way to kind of stretch that so that you get more bang for your buck, because obviously potatoes are very cheap. So you just want to cut those into cubes and boil them until they are tender. I went ahead and set those to the side while I worked on the meat. So this is just a couple pounds of ground beef. I am sauteing that with salt, pepper, some minced onion, and then I also minced up 3 cloves of fresh garlic, added that along with some cayenne pepper and some cumin. I also added a little bit of chili powder and then some tomato paste. So this is what's going to help that meat mixture thicken up along with some water. So you do kind of have to simmer this and stir it for quite a bit to get it to come together. But once I had the seasonings right, I went ahead and added my cooked and drained potatoes and stirred those in. You can see this is what my rice looks like when it's done. It's nice and fluffy. All the grains are separate. This makes a great meal prep too. It warms up great in the microwave. So I went ahead and removed those big pieces of vegetables and then just simmered the beef mixture until that was thickened. This also makes a really great enchilada filling, which is what I think I'm actually going to use the leftovers for. And then my rice and my tortillas, which I just like to kind of warm and crisp those up a tiny bit in a dry skillet. So I had some of the rice along with a taco with some sour cream, cheese, and salsa. It turned out super good. And then I meant to kind of film the process of making these cookies, but Connor was helping me, and then it just got a little chaotic, and he put the flour in and turned the mixer on high, and then we had flour all over the kitchen, and you know how that goes with kids. So I didn't get that whole part filmed, but this is my favorite peanut butter cookie recipe, and I almost always have the ingredients to make it. It actually uses shortening instead of butter, so I'll link that down below. It's from the Crisco website. But yeah, this was just a nice day at home. Obviously, we didn't go anywhere because of the roads, and I just kind of cooked all day and we hung out. So thanks so much for joining me on this day of Vlogmas, and I'll see you tomorrow for another one. Bye.